My fellow Americans, my name is James Peppe and I'm running for the Republican nomination for President of the United States. For the next few minutes, I'd like to explain why I believe our country needs to make a big change and why I represent the sort of change we need. America is suffering from a serious crisis of leadership. For a long time now, the Democrat and Republican parties have failed to provide us with leaders capable of uniting us and moving our country forward with respect to our most pressing concerns and challenges. Instead, they consistently give us self-serving, professional politicians or wealthy elitists who have no clue how the vast majority of us live our everyday lives. In the case of our current president, they've somehow managed to outdo themselves by inflicting upon us an out-of-touch, egomaniacal, pathological liar and con man. I'm sorry if my bluntness offends, but most of us know that is simply the truth. This leadership crisis lies at the feet of America's long-standing power establishment, thought influencers in politics, business, news media, academia, organized religion, and entertainment, all driven by a single common denominator, the relentless pursuit of ever-increasing wealth and the power that goes with it. Now, in our land of opportunity, the pursuit of financial success and security is no sin. In fact, it is something to be promoted, encouraged, celebrated, and emulated. It's a fine line, however, between such a natural pursuit and the blind, all-consuming greed which too often leads men and women to subvert the interests of their neighbors and country to their own. That's what we see in our politics today, and the glaring failures of Donald Trump demand that we take action now to fix it before it's too late. Like many of his predecessors, Trump sought the presidency and entered into office promising bipartisanship and the ability to heal our country's growing divide. Unlike the others, however, Trump has made no effort whatsoever to bridge our differences. In fact, just the opposite. He's taken every opportunity to tear down the strong connections among us which remain, all for his own personal and political gain, while he shamelessly panders to our deep longing for an ever greater America. From day one, Trump has so ruthlessly and viciously attacked anyone who dare disagree with him that he's actually managed to worsen our social unrest, just when you thought that couldn't be possible. But he's done it. Nearly 900 days into his presidency, Donald Trump now presides over an America more angrily divided than at any time since our Civil War. Though Trump's failures are epic, he's not without accomplices. So-called congressional leaders from both sides of the political aisle have sized up this president and this crucial moment in our history, and sadly, opted for politics as usual. Democrats, led by Speaker Pelosi, cynically attack, wound, and leave the president for dead to suit their own partisan ambitions. In the end, however, they refuse to perform their sworn duty to act as the ultimate check against the most corrupt, dishonest, and dangerous chief executive in our nation's history. In other words, once again, they place party before country. At the same time, Republicans behind Senate Majority Leader McConnell continue inventing new and creative ways to sink lower and lower in their hypocritical, unprincipled, and unscrupulous defense of a president who is obviously a clear and present danger to the ideals and country they're sworn to protect. Meanwhile, in those influential spheres just outside the immediate realm of politics, the most powerful voices among us conveniently ignore the dangers right in front of them in favor of ratings, profits, and notoriety. They pour gas on the fire and fan the flames instead of offering any sort of real solutions. As a result of these failures, America now stands at a momentous crossroads of our history, and the choices we make regarding those who will lead us from here will determine whether we the people rise to stand tall once again as masters of our own destinies, or instead give up and lock ourselves into the chains of slavery. For make no mistake, a free people who allow such abuse of power to go unchecked are no longer free. I'm a true outsider to this failed power establishment, and my grassroots campaign for president is fundamentally conceived as the remedy for which so many regular Americans have for so long waited. Real change, not merely the words on a bumper sticker, but real change, is desperately needed to restore faith in our politics, return power to the people, and put our country back on track to a healthy, happy, and prosperous future. While every other major candidate in this race is either a professional politician or a wealthy elitist, I am the only true leader capable of delivering that change. Let's be honest with ourselves. Because both major political parties are complicit in our nation's worsening divide, we cannot reasonably expect that the cure for this leadership crisis will come about by continuing to lurch from one side to the other. In my lifetime, we've seen the pendulum swing wildly from the disillusionment of Johnson in Vietnam, to the disgust of Nixon and Watergate, to the disappointment of Carter and our national malaise. Ronald Reagan's Morning in America gave us much needed relief. But then Bush 41 asked us to read his lips, which led us to Clinton and impeachment, which led us to Bush 43 and the Great Recession, which led us to Obama and extreme gridlock, and which has now led us here, to the waking nightmare that is Donald Trump. Given this pattern of downward spiral, what on earth would lead anyone to believe that yet another establishment president will finally break the cycle? No, it's clear. Today's Republicans and Democrats are incapable of rising above this destructive political game and advancing meaningful cooperation and progress that puts country before party. Which is why it's equally clear that real change must come from one who would first challenge his own party, acknowledge its failures, chart its reform, and pledge a genuine commitment to bipartisanship for the common good. Today, I'm the only serious candidate for president who's doing all of these things. Before outlining my historic agenda for change, a decent respect to the opinions of my fellow Americans requires that I should declare the failures of President Trump which impel us to this change. First, Trump constantly betrays the public trust. He does so by lying outright to the American people every day about matters big and small. In a profession where deceit is all too common, Donald Trump is in a class all by himself. He betrayed the public trust when he misled his own supporters with the promise of a border wall paid for by Mexico, a false and cynical promise which he had no unilateral power to fulfill. It was an irresponsible political ploy, and it should surprise no one that no meaningful progress has been made to date. Trump betrays the public trust by intentionally undermining our critical public institutions, including the judiciary, our intelligence community, the free press, and our democratic elections. Again, all for his own perceived benefit and advantage. He betrays the public trust once again by making no sincere effort to close our partisan divide. And to the extent he claims otherwise, he actually blames his critics for not following, instead of taking responsibility for his obvious failure to lead. Donald Trump betrays the public trust by personally profiting from the presidency like no president ever before, to the conservative tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, all while boasting of his virtue in foregoing his comparatively paltry annual salary. He betrayed the public trust by repeatedly obstructing justice in his attempt to impede the Mueller investigation into Russian interference in our elections, a direct attack upon our country, which he continues to downplay, if even acknowledge at all. He betrayed the public trust by shutting down the government with casual disregard to the devastating effects on hundreds of thousands of employees and their families, shamelessly using them as bargaining chips in his reckless attempt to extort the Congress for billions of dollars to build his border wall. Second, Trump has made America less safe. He makes us less safe by constantly undermining our vital relationships with key allies. He makes us less safe when he falsely suggests that the nuclear threat from North Korea has been neutralized, resulting inevitably in lessened pressure on that murderous regime and a heightened potential for dangerous future hostilities. Trump makes us less safe by turning a blind eye to an emboldened Russia that has invaded Ukraine, annexed Crimea, supported Iran and Syria, and even directly attacked our own country. To make matters still worse, he has repeatedly defended and even encouraged Russia's dangerous and threatening actions. He makes us less safe by continually rattling sabers toward Iran in an attempt to goad that nation into a conflict which will provide him the pretext to deploy American military might against a universally despised adversary. He does this out of a belief that it will prove beneficial to his short-term political fortunes, even though such a conflict will be devastatingly costly in American blood and treasure in the long run. Third, Trump is gambling with our economy. He gambles with our economy by politicizing the independent Federal Reserve Board and meddling with its operations, undermining the public trust and market certainty upon which the investment community so vitally depends. He gambles with our economy by waging his ego-driven, misguided trade war with China and several allied nations, risking decades of painstaking progress simply to demonstrate toughness to his political base, with little regard to the disastrous effects on American farmers and manufacturers. Trump gambled with our economy when he rushed to cut taxes without systemic reform and shortcut a deliberative process for deregulation. In doing so, he's left our government with few tools in the toolbox to address our next economic downturn, thereby risking long-term prosperity and stability for the short-term political benefits of positive economic statistics. This is by no means an exhaustive recitation of Trump's many failures, but rather merely the tip of the proverbial iceberg. Still, it more than illustrates Trump's long train of abuses and demonstrates in a manner which is entirely self-evident that his despotic pursuits are utterly destructive of our ultimate ends, those being life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As president, my agenda for change will fundamentally counteract Trump's self-serving reign by refocusing our efforts back toward our historic principles while restoring power and control over their lives to regular Americans. First, we will shift our national focus away from extremist ideologies and back toward the common sense solutions most of us strongly support. And while regular Americans have been taken for granted and lied to for so long, as one of those regular Americans myself, you can be sure that I will always tell you the truth and treat you with the respect and candor you deserve. Furthermore, I will act with dignity and civility, reflecting the very best of America and appealing constantly to the better angels of our nature. On the other hand, like all red-blooded, high-spirited regular Americans, I will not run from a fight worth fighting, and the battle to ensure our return to the fundamental commitments of individual liberty and justice for all is exactly such a fight. Regarding policy, we will identify and advance common sense points of bipartisan agreement and act swiftly to achieve progress on the following priorities. On privacy, my American Privacy Protection Act will shift the balance of power and control over personal lives back in favor of regular Americans. We will ban personal credit scoring and data sharing. We'll prohibit government interference in healthcare decision-making. And we will reaffirm Americans' fundamental right to responsibly defend themselves with guns. In addition, we will expressly define and cement our privacy rights during the course of America's second constitutional convention, where we will also finally enact congressional term limits. On healthcare, we will focus on helping citizens who cannot afford health insurance in the same way in which we help those who can't afford food. To do so, we will adhere to the Hippocratic Oath of doctors and first do no harm to a system that works for most and which drives global innovation and advancement in medical procedures, technologies, and pharmaceuticals. We will also strive to better repay the unpayable debt we owe our brave and selfless veterans with the establishment of Medicare, a new and common sense approach to ensuring effective, priority healthcare service from veterans providers of choice. On education, we will initiate a profoundly revolutionary effort to elevate education as a national value to the top of our priority list by dramatically increasing teacher pay, enhancing local control, increasing affordable access to higher education, including job retraining and trade schools, and relieving the burden of existing school loan debt for millions. On infrastructure, we will immediately embark on a 25-year plan to completely reconstruct America's crumbling and outdated infrastructure, to include roads, highways, and bridges, railways, air and seaports, ports of entry and border security systems, pipelines, our electric grid and related power systems, and our communications networks. These facilities will be manufactured with the most advanced materials and smart technologies available, and they will be super hardened to protect against natural disasters and unnatural attacks from those seeking to do us harm. The projects will create millions of high-paying jobs, and our nation will rapidly return to the forefront of infrastructure innovation and leadership while attracting historic levels of private sector investment. On immigration, finally, Finally, we will advance the common sense proposition that we can continue our valued traditions of welcoming immigrants while requiring and managing adherence to simple rules of order. We will first reassure the world that America remains open, thereby reducing fears and encouraging people to travel here through proper points of entry. Next, we will provide comprehensive and ongoing guidance to immigrants with regards to revised policies, expectations, and requirements. For instance, visitors to our country will be issued federal IDs, which they must keep with them at all times, just like a driver's license. Immigrants and visitors to America must understand that there will be no taxpayer-subsidized welfare for non-citizens, no tolerance of so-called sanctuary cities, and swift punishment and deportation for those who commit serious violations of our laws. Cooperation and assistance will be required of employers, and support services will be integrated into public schools and hospitals to ensure compassion, compliance, and efficiency. Working together, that is the bipartisan balance we will seek, and that is the common sense outcome we will achieve. On foreign policy, we will act swiftly to restore friendly, constructive relations with our long-standing allies, while reminding our adversaries of our unwavering resolve to freedom and human rights. We will go further still by making a clear distinction between our true, freedom-loving friends and our strategic allies who must make fundamental improvements in the treatment of their own citizens, especially women and children, if they wish to enjoy the full benefit of friendship with the United States of America. On social justice, it's long past time that we come together to soberly and honestly acknowledge our imperfections if we're ever to overcome those failings and deliver on the promise of America to all of us. On the most personal issues relating to race, gender, sexual orientation, and religion, we will restore and strengthen our historical traditions of tolerance and respect for people's right to live the lives they choose, free from the self-inflicted evils of bigotry and discrimination. Though we may never fully eradicate the dark side of our nature, we must vow to always speak out against such darkness when it emerges to threaten the light, and join together in strength to stop it dead in its tracks. The promise of America is even greater than we realize, but it requires our renewed fortitude and vigilance if we're ever to achieve the true benefits we so desperately desire. My friends, I stand before you claiming not that there is something so special about me that makes me deserving of your support to be our next president. To the contrary, I've expressed my passions, beliefs, and hopes for our great nation as one who is just like you, a regular American who loves his country and who understands the everyday joys and struggles of real life. A regular American who doesn't give a damn about climbing political ladders, accumulating vast wealth and power, or achieving notoriety and fame. A regular American who wants nothing more than to help our country, once again, be the greatest land of opportunity and justice for all, where each of us can be happy living the lives we choose, free from the suffocating burdens of overbearing and intrusive government and industry. Burdens deviously devised to serve establishment elites instead of we, the people, who toil, sweat, and bleed to improve, protect, and defend the country we love. No, it is the fact that I am not especially different from you that makes it so important that we join together to take back our country. I'm proud to be a regular American, and I'm extremely grateful to have the high honor of your consideration to lead our country to its next era of true greatness as your president. Thank you for listening, and thank you for believing. May God bless you and your family, and of course, may God continue to bless our United States of America. Thank you.